A stalemate is still on the Ukrainian front, with a further meeting planned between US Secretary of State Blinken and his Russian counterpart Lavrov, as well as a visit to Moscow by French President Macron, while Mr. Putin has traveled to Beijing for the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics in China. Needless to say that between Putin and Xi Jinping there is a common purpose understanding with regard to the Ukrainian affair. Incidentally, looking at history, we read that in 1997 a treaty on friendship, cooperation and partnership was signed between Russia and Ukraine, with a commitment on both sides that their relationship should be one of peace and reciprocal non-interference. Although this treaty expired 2 years later, it must play a role in the mind of Putin in his vindication over Ukraine. Leaving Ukraine aside, the northwest of Europe is in a political turmoil, firstly with the barrage of discontent in Westminster of Prime Minister Johnson's behaviour and the political crisis in Northern Ireland due to dissent on the Northern Ireland Protocol. Boris Johnson has been accused of lying in Parliament on many occasions, being ultimately accused of breaking or allowed to break the lockdown rules over a period of 2 years with celebratory gatherings of people at number 10 Downing Street. The number of members of his party considering him unfit to rule the country and calling for his resignation is on the increase, with several of his closest collaborators resigning.
But Johnson, who isn't the kind of man to cave in under pressure, has continued to get busy in getting involved in everything he could get his hands on, both domestically and internationally, with a visit to Ukraine's president and talking to Putin on the phone. In addition, domestically, a so-called levelling up to eliminate societal and economic inequality in the UK has been announced. It seems quite clear to those who can read between the lines that all these frenzied activities at home and abroad are a smokescreen to distract public opinion from the serious issues undermining Johnson's position as the Prime Minister and the reputation of his Conservative government. Those who excuse Johnson for the Partygate debacle keep pointing out that after all he has proved to be an exceptional leader on many counts. Firstly, they say, he was the Prime Minister who delivered Brexit for the UK, blatantly ignoring the negative drawbacks that Brexit has caused. They also say that he has been the Prime Minister who delivered economic recovery, ignoring the fact that in Britain, now more than ever, the gap between those who have and those who have not keeps widening. Finally, they point out that he has been the Prime Minister who has delivered extensive vaccination for the country, not considering that by eliminating all pandemic restrictions, it has caused more deaths and contagions.
On top of it all, due to relentless dissent by the DUP party over the Northern Ireland Protocol, the power-sharing Belfast government has collapsed with the resignation of First Minister Paul Givan. If Northern Ireland is now experiencing political crisis, in the Republic there is an air of relative stability, with a three-party coalition government led by Prime Minister Micheál Martin enjoying considerable approval. It is interesting, though, to x-ray this country from a political and economic point of view. We invited an Irish and an Italian journalist to give us their opinion. Welcome to this meeting with Irish journalist Frank Armstrong and his Italian colleague Daniele Idini, both co-editors of CassandраVoices.com, an Irish online magazine which takes no prisoners with its high-octane editorials. We'll be talking about Ireland, the unhappy Ireland as Shakespeare once defined it, the small country which over the last 30 years has gained a place in the Olympus of European countries with the highest economic growth, in which, like in some other countries in Europe, England is an example, for example, economic growth is driven by a merciless, unregulated market economy which systematically makes the rich richer, the poor poorer, leaving behind the so-called little people. So what is your take on this issue? We start with Frank.
Well, I suppose Ireland is an unhappy island in some respects, and in other respects, it's doing quite well. It's got a young population where the politics has tended to be less toxic than other places. So meaning we have maintained, in general, a favourable attitude towards Europe while maintaining decent relationships with the United Kingdom and the US, and so we're sort of in a lucky position in a way, but in other respects we are probably far too dependent on the large multinationals that have located themselves in the country, and it is particularly in the property. The allocation of property in society is unequal, and young people are seriously finding it difficult. So that's one of the challenges we now confront. I think it's almost non-ideological at this stage, and it ought to be something that should bring all the parties together. But unfortunately, there is a sort of political stasis and a lot of point scoring going on, and probably too much deference to the banks and lending institutions, and too much of a desire probably to attract investment as opposed to the state taking more of a role.
I should add my experience of Ireland is limited to the last 16 years that I'm living here, and I definitely noticed some very deep changes in the on the ground. Let's say first and foremost, Ireland still offers a huge amount of opportunities for newcomers, and professionally also for Irish people as well. I mean, most of big tech corporations are here. There is a huge service industry, which definitely attracts young people a lot from Italy as well at the moment. But at the same time, Frank was mentioning this widening of the gap between wealth and the wealthy and the poorer parts of society. Well, that unfortunately, I have to say, in the last 5 years in particular, I would say that gap is always more visible and is now at a stage that is eroding a big part of the middle class as well. So it's not only a problem of the poorest sides of society, it's becoming a problem of the middle class losing purchasing power over their savings. Cost of living is extremely high compared to other European countries, compared to other European capitals, and unfortunately they don't offer as much as other. So it's a mixed situation, and definitely it's a moment of intense debate. But then I think it's a watershed moment for the near future, with, of course, the election coming in 2 years.
Okay, we could talk until the cows come home about this, but the time is limited, and I thank you very much for taking part in this meeting. And I'm sure we'll meet again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your
Grazie.
Grazie.